Okay. So like I said, I'm going to give a little blurb about Navio, and then we're going to dive right in. Again, if you're just joining and you submitted a question in advance when you registered, please just pop a comment into the chat because we will answer those questions first. So Navio exists because we've been at this quite a long time. And we noticed that there was a huge gap between people's ability to access the support they wanted, lack of support that met the needs of people like you who are trying to apply for immigration to Canada. So, we want to be there and available to support people. So we developed a web app that allows you to use the same system that we use when we prepare an application, combined with support from experts like Caitlin and I, but without the typical multiple thousands of dollars of legal fees, and have a way that we can work together versus we do it or you're on your own. Because we really don't want people to feel like they're on their own. We want you to be able to get the support you actually want, not more, not less, and not break the bank. So that's why we exist. That's what we're here for. We leverage technology and the most advanced technology we can, and then leave the rest, the highest value, most kind of critical, strategic thinking and judgment. That's what we're here to do and offer you. We run these sessions bi-weekly so that you have a chance to come. Minimal commitment other than showing up, which thank you for spending time with us. And, we just want to be available and helpful. So that's why we run these sessions. There's a lot that's changing in immigration law all the time in Canada. And so this is a place where we can kind of all work together to keep up to date on it. Okay, so that said, let's dive in. Caitlin, are you in the chat? Can you tell me who has submitted a question?
Yeah, the first one we've got is Ikenna Kenneth sorry if I say this wrong. Ikenna Kenneth 𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬.
Okay, perfect. Give me a second. All right, so the question is, I received a provincial nomination approval, but my visitor record application is still pending a decision. Should I choose an in Canada or outside Canada to apply for the work permit? My employer sworn to me, I'm in Canada. That's a great question. So there are a very specific group of people who are eligible to apply for a work permit inside of Canada. Caitlin's going to look it up. Does it include provincial nominees? I know it includes like free trade agreement, people who are
Let me look it up.
Yeah, this is it. There's so much. We know exactly where to go, what section of the act. So we will confirm, and Caitlin, you can tell us the exact section of the act once you've pulled that up. But basically, if you're physically in Canada applying for a work permit, if you fall into the category of people who are eligible to submit an in Canada application, then you can submit it in Canada. If you are not, then you can still submit your application while you're physically in Canada, but the application itself will be processed by a visa office abroad that serves your country of citizenship. Caitlin, just let me know when you've got that up.
Yeah, I'm getting that. Well, it's section 199 of the regulations. You can apply in Canada if you already have a work permit, if you are authorized to be working without a work permit, hold a study permit, hold a temporary resident permit, or a family member of any of those people, or are in a situation described in, and then it links to two other sections, which I just want to see if that's where provincial nominees might be mentioned. 206 or 207.
But one of the things to consider as well, depends where you're from. If you're from a TRV exempt country, you might be better off exiting the country, going anywhere but the USA, and then coming back and applying at the airport when you re-enter, because if you're submitting an in-Canada application, the current processing time is over 200 days, like 255 days or something like that. So I would also just like, if you're TRV exempt, that would work because you would be able to exit and then apply when you re-enter.
So just an update in summary, no, being a provincial nominee doesn't let you apply in Canada. You have to also meet one of the requirements. And you said in this case, it's a visitor status.
Yeah.
So you can apply from inside Canada, well, physically here, but you have to submit it as an out of Canada application. So different application forms, and then you still have to go out the country and come back in to get the permit. So
yeah. And that probably will be faster, right? Submitting, and when we say like you submit it, you could physically be here, but submit it to the office like it's an outside Canada application. You don't actually like control that just by virtue of how you answer the questions on the application form when it asks your current country of residence, your status, your country of citizenship. Those answers will route the application to the appropriate visa office, because you'll submit through your MyCIC account. So you actually don't have to necessarily worry about it, but other than understanding what the process will be, what the timelines will look like. And as Caitlin mentioned, when you're approved, you'll get the port of entry letter of introduction, which is the approval in principle. And you do have to leave Canada and
North America.
Right. Yeah. Leave Canada to somewhere other than the USA and then re-enter to activate the work permit. Okay. Next question was Nadisha. Let me see here. Okay, Nadisha, if you can either pop into the chat or come off mute. I saw your question earlier, and I just want clarity on exactly what you mean. So the question is, how would I go about applying for PR unaccompanied? In my mind, I can interpret that a number of different ways. So I just want clarity to make sure I'm answering the question that you intend. So if you want to either pop off of mute or drop some clarity in the comments about
Sure. Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Not bad. So what I meant is, if I'm married, but I want to apply for PR as unaccompanied, meaning I'm declaring that I'm married, but I'm not applying with my spouse. How do I go about that? And is that something that you would recommend?
Right. Okay.
I have some thoughts on this too, if you don't, Brooke.
Yeah, I have some. No, let's both, because this is a really interesting question. It's like a hot topic. So thank you so much for bringing it up, because I think a lot of people will benefit from hearing both of our thoughts. And what I will say as well is that I don't think either of us are necessarily right or wrong, even if we have differing opinions, because there are a lot of divergent opinions on this topic. So one other piece I will add, though, which I forgot to say in my housekeeping notes, is because this is a general open session, this is just guidance. We're sharing general information. Nothing that we share today is like constitutes legal advice. In order for us to be able to provide you with like personalized legal advice, we have to be retained to do so, either in a paid consultation or under a service agreement. So I just need to add that just to make sure we're all on the same page. So, all right, question for you, Nadisha. Is your husband here with you in Canada? Sorry, I'm also assuming you're in Canada.
Yes, we're both here.
Okay. So I would say that I wouldn't recommend that you apply and declare your husband unaccompanied, because he's here with you. And I don't know much other than what you've just shared about your circumstances, but as general, like my position, generally speaking, is if you're in Canada with your spouse or partner, you would declare them as accompanying, because IRCC they're taking the position that if someone is like here and established in Canada with you, your spouse, then there are cases where IRCC has concluded that the applicant misrepresented because they declared their partner or spouse unaccompanied when that person was here and established, and IRCC concluded that that was misrepresentation. I know that it's a matter that is before federal court, like meaning people that have been refused and where IRCC has said that it's misrepresentation, that they are disputing that in federal court. So it's certainly a fluid topic. And the other thing I will add is IRCC announced recently, I think it was last month, that they're planning revisions to the way that the CRS points are awarded. And one of the things that they're considering removing is the points for spouse factors. And so if they do that, it will completely eliminate this kind of question or strategic consideration of, do I include my spouse as accompanying or not? I would say if someone approached me and said my husband or wife or partner is not here in Canada with me, they, and there's evidence that this person's going to continue to remain outside of Canada for the foreseeable future, whether it's like job obligations or other obligations that would keep this person outside of Canada full time, then yes, I would consider and entertain declaring a spouse or partner as non-accompanying. But if they're here with you and they've been here and have put down roots here, it's going to be hard to convince IRCC that they're genuinely non-accompanying, and then you run the risk of IRCC claiming that or determining that there was some form of misrepresentation. Ian, I see your hand. We'll come to you in a second here. Caitlin, did you want to weigh in?
Really just exactly what you said. The only other thing potentially to add is, in the past, this might have been more accepted. So you might have heard of other people doing it and wondering why we're being kind of so strict on our advice. But it's something that I think IRCC's, now realizing people are doing, and they are becoming more strict. So definitely in today's climate, I wouldn't recommend it either.
Exactly. And on that note, I would say we are noticing and experiencing IRCC interpreting and applying laws that have existed forever, maybe not forever, but for a long time. And now, like, they are applying these laws or interpreting them in ways that we haven't experienced before. And it doesn't mean that there's actually been like a change to the legislation or policy, but it's kind of like, flavor of the day. And if you think about why, IRCC has reduced the overall volume of permanent and temporary residents. I'm sure everyone here is well aware. And the way to do that is, to increase the bar, like make it harder to become, like to apply, increase the threshold of eligibility criteria, which they haven't really done. Like, eligibility criteria has by and large stayed the same. And the other way is just to refuse more applications or invite fewer people. Like the invitation system acts as a bit of a control mechanism. But yeah, so that's just another, like, if you're wondering, well, why would they start interpreting a section of the law in a different way than they have before, or paying more attention to something that they didn't seem to really pay much attention to in the past? That's a big reason why, is just the policy shift and the shift in immigration levels. Ian, I see your hand. Do you have a question related to the current topic? If not, I will ask you to pop it into the chat so that I can go in chronological order here. But if it's related to this topic, please by all means come off mute. Okay. Perfect. And if anyone's joining that that maybe missed my spiel at the beginning, the way that we answer the questions, if you submitted one in advance, when you registered, just drop a comment in the chat. We'll answer those questions first. Then we'll go to questions from those of you who are here today, but didn't submit a question in advance. And then if we have time, we have questions from individuals who weren't able to make it today. So I will attempt to get to those if there's time. But for those of you who have showed up, we will prioritize all of your questions. Okay. So the next question from Success is, I have a question about the Canadian Experience class. Awesome. I see your hand, Success. I'll just read the question and then you can pop off mute. My Canadian work experience is March 26th, 2025 to March 24th, 2026, ECE field. So that's early childhood educator. And 2 years of foreign work experience. Does this meet the 1 year CEC requirement? Amazing question. This comes up a lot. Success, feel free to come off of mute if you want to add anything before we dive into the answer.
Oh, yeah. Good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you. So, like my question, I learned about the Express entry for the Canadian Experience class, and I have like my work experience from 26th of March 2025 to 4th of March 2026 because I currently applied for uni and then I stopped working. But they said the 1 year it has to be 52 weeks, but mine is like 49 weeks, like just like 3 weeks to complete it. So I wanted to ask, like, is this like will it go through, like will they count it as 1 year? I know, like if I apply for the like if I put in the application, since it's not going to show the particular date, it's going to count as 1 year. But when like maybe they open my application and they see like the exact date, will it like be flagged or like returned or something like that?
Yeah, so it's possible it will succeed, I would say. It's also possible that it would get refused. So the reason I say it could succeed is that the calculation of work experience for the purpose of determining your eligibility in the Canadian Experience class, IRCC will take into account a reasonable amount of vacation or holiday time.
Yeah.
And so in your case, that is about exactly the amount of time that you're short, is about 2 weeks. So it's possible that if you like between the period of the dates that you actually were employed, if you have a minimum of 1,560 hours, and then you were paid out vacation, assuming you accumulated it, and then it was paid out at the end of your employment, arguably you have a year if that the last 2 weeks is considered vacation. I would say if you took other vacation during that period of employment plus the 2 weeks at the end that you're short, then you're getting more into a riskier situation. Caitlin, what do you think?
Well, my understanding, which is a little different to this, is if you get an invitation to apply, and because of the system, you only enter the year and the month, so it sort of gives you a bit more work experience than maybe what you've actually accumulated. If you're still working in that job when you get invited, I believe the government has said that you can still apply. But I'm pretty sure, and I know, the email we're talking about, Brooke, where we got some guidance. I believe it was, if you got invited to apply and you were still working in that job. So like you weren't at the 1 year yet, but you are still working in it, and you just got your invitation a little early because the system over-calculated your months, added a month or two. This case, I think it could go either way.
What you cannot do is misrepresent in any way. So if you do get an invitation to apply, because the system will round up, and IRCC has acknowledged that. So if you do get an invitation to apply, you just have to be incredibly transparent about the experience that you have. And I would even say, like, quote the operating policy about where it states that the reasonable amount of vacation will be counted as part of your 1 year experience. And I think that's going to be, the best chance of success you have, other than, accumulating that additional couple weeks.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so then the one I said, oh, I had like a foreign experience. So yeah, I'm just like trying like to know my opportunities in the express entries in case like the Canadian experience class doesn't work, because right now I'm currently not working there and I'm in school. So I applied for
Right.
study permit and I'm in school. So I have 2 years, because back home I was also like working as an ECE.
Yeah.
And I have like 2 years of experience back home. But like I know like there's the category base or something like that, and you have to have like an experience within 3 years. But the experience I have back home was within 2020 to 2021 to like 2022. So like it's past the 3 year mark,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, then it wouldn't qualify for a category-based draw, and you would be potentially eligible under the Federal Skilled Worker Program, but IRCC hasn't been drawing for that program. So someone that qualifies in the Federal Skilled Worker Program would, based on like the recent cadence and types of invitations, someone that qualified in Federal Skilled Worker would be likely to get invited only if you qualify also for one of the category-based draws. So I would suggest when you're finished studying, if you're eligible for an open work permit like a PGWP, apply, or seek a work permit through other means. There are over 50 different types of work permits. The majority of them are LMIA exempt. So you could secure another work permit. And then if you gain the extra bit of experience, and you can combine that, like your Canadian experience doesn't need to be consecutive. It can be cumulative as long as it falls within the past, like the 3 years before you apply.
Okay. And if I'm working like part-time while I'm schooling, the work experience doesn't count, yeah?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
No.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Awesome. Okay. Manavir, I don't see your questions on my list here. You mentioned you submitted one in advance. I'm just scanning. So if you want to come off of mute and tell me what that question was, then we can tackle it.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, the question was about LMIA.
Okay.
We're here a couple of families. All our husbands got sponsorship from their companies, and we applied for LMIA from different companies. And the first family, they submitted their application as early as November. There are no updates. So if our work permit expires before we hear back from them, what is going to happen?
Are you in Canada?
Yes, we're in British Columbia.
Okay, so you're already in Canada. Do you already have work permits?
Yes.
And just to clarify, then this is a renewal?
No, it's not a renewal. Our work permits were issued on a special, let's call it a special open work permit, which were granted for Turkish and Syrian earthquake citizens. You might know it. So
okay, and now you're applying for LMIA-based work permits.
Yes.
Okay. So, and you've already submitted. Has the LMIA been approved?
No. There is no updates. We haven't heard back from them.
Got it.
Yes. And my husband's application was submitted in early March, but there are some families who we know in the same situation, and some of them were submitted as early as November.
Right.
December, no updates.
And when you say the applications, you mean the LMIA application?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay. So, Caitlin, you're best to answer. So I'll give my like high level, but Caitlin is the absolute guru, probably knows more than anyone else like in the country about LMIAs.
Okay.
But what you need to do, your husband, so if everyone's husband is the principal applicant, because
Yes,
that's
yes,
whose name is on the LMIA, they're the
yes.
principal applicant, so they need to submit their work permit applications. It is an application to extend your stay, but you're changing conditions. So it's a bit of a nuance there. It is an extension, but it's also a request to change conditions from the open permit to the closed employer-specific work permit. So you would submit those applications before their current permit expires. So you, your husband, if you have children here with you, everyone needs to submit their applications before their existing work permit expires. And when you submit those, you'll include proof that the LMIA was submitted.
Mhm.
And then you'll ask IRCC to hold their decision until the LMIA is finalized, and that there's a decision on the LMIA. And IRCC actually has a policy where they're instructed to, if they start reviewing a work permit application and there's the LMIA is missing because it hasn't been approved yet, or it wasn't approved when you applied, IRCC is actually instructed to issue a request and give you, what is it, Caitlin, 6 weeks to apply, to supply the LMIA?
2 months, I thought.
2 months? Okay,
My
60 days.
understanding must have changed.
Six
It 60
something,
days, yeah.
60 days. Yeah.
66.
Okay. I was 6 weeks would be nice. 60 days. Okay. But they are instructed to give, like, to specifically request a copy of the LMIA and give you that extra time to like get it from your employer and provide it. So just make sure when you, 2 things, submit the work permit applications before your current permits expire, because that maintains your status, and it will, as long as you stay in Canada, it allows you to continue working and gives you status in Canada while you wait for a decision on the new work permit. And then number 2, when you apply, make it abundantly clear that there is an LMIA pending. So when your employer or your husband's employer applied for the LMIA,
Mhm.
they submit through LMIA online, and they
Yes.
immediately get submission confirmation
Yes,
and a file
yes,
number.
we
So
have them.
yeah, perfect. So include that with your work permit applications, the extensions and change of condition request, and include that along with a letter of explanation saying, here's what's happened. It's been submitted. We're still waiting. Our permits are expiring. We need to
Okay.
maintain our status. So here's the whole situation. Here's all the evidence we have.
Mhm.
And that way you maintain your status, and
Mhm.
hopefully the LMIA comes through and is approved in the meantime. So
Mhm.
then you can submit a web form with the approved LMIA to update your work permit application if IRCC hasn't asked you for it already.
Okay,
Okay, Caitlin, anything to add?
thank you.
You're so welcome.
No, there's actually a help center question on RSCC's website exactly about this too. Maybe I'll pop the link in the chat.
Yeah, pop the link in the chat.
Because it says exactly how to do it. I guess just a couple of things to note. So you do have the LMIA number, right?
Yes.
To include the application.
Yes.
So yeah, the policy, IRCC's policy is to kind of give you 60 days. They may or may not request the LMIA. They might just wait 60 days and refuse the application if they don't hear anything further from you.
Mhm.
They may also take longer to process your application, which is nice if you get more time. Or they may process, well, we just had a recent situation where they processed the work permit much faster than the 2 months. But in that case, the LMIA number the person didn't put the right number in. So make sure you've got the right LMIA number, because I feel like they must check and see if at least that's a number that's kind of being processed. I think they can talk to ESCC.
Like a real file, yeah.
So yeah, I'd say bank on getting an extra 2 months of work. And if the LMIA doesn't come in that time, then you may have to sort of stop work for a bit until you get the LMIA and the new work permit. But yeah, link in the chat.
Okay, hopefully there is not something like they have suspended all LMIA
No.
applications. No, right?
No, they haven't.
Okay.
And that's a common misconception. I've heard it a lot, actually,
Yes.
from like, you know,
Some people
who
are talking about it on Reddit or on Facebook groups. So
they have not suspended
That-
LMIA processing. They've certainly made the access to the program more difficult.
Mhm.
And there's more barriers in place than I would say
Mhm.
we've ever experienced before. But if your employer's eligible and if all the requirements are met, when you submit an application,
Mhm.
government has an obligation to process it. So backlogs and delays are normal. I wouldn't be concerned other than like the timing piece, but I wouldn't be concerned of like, are they not going to process it? They will eventually process it.
Great to know. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Sindhu had asked, I have only 1 year left on my work permit and I just got a job offer. What are my current options to plan for a PR? It's realistic for me to focus on learning French now in this situation. Okay, this is a really good question. It's pretty broad. So I think, you know, most people will be able to get something from this answer. When you're here with a work permit, it gives you a lot of power to be able to kind of make decisions that will set you up for, or at least put you in the best position to succeed. And what I mean by that is immigration is becoming more and more targeted, whether it's by geography or occupation. So with someone that has a year left on their work permit, first what I would do is, depending on where you currently live, where you're currently employed, what your past work experience has been, I would evaluate what programs are available to you based on your current circumstances. So I would start with express entry. Do you qualify for Canadian experience class? Do you qualify for a federal skilled worker class under one of the category-based draws? Those are the first options I go to because it's the fastest route to PR if you're a eligible candidate. If you're not eligible, or perhaps you don't have a competitive profile for those programs, then I would look at the provincial nominee program for wherever you're currently located and do the same assessment. Are you eligible? And how likely is it that you're going to succeed with your application? And often that hinges on, because most programs operate by an expression of interest or invitation to apply system. So every evaluation of eligibility is two-part. First, do you meet the minimum eligibility criteria? Second, is your profile or competitive enough? So I would evaluate that based on your current circumstances. If we have a viable path, fantastic. I would pursue that like with all of my effort. If not, I would then start looking at, okay, well, this is the experience I have, or this is the education I have. Where can I find employment that's going to put me in a position where I'm more likely to succeed? So that could be, looking for example, I've been chatting with a fair number of people in Ontario, and there are people that are changing occupations because their occupation itself is being invited to apply, but the location of work where they currently are is in Toronto, right? And there's very few invitations, or at least they're less frequent invitations to apply to the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program if your location of work is Toronto. So, I have clients that are seeking out job opportunities or even transfers within their own company. If that company has operations in different locations, they're seeking out opportunities to relocate the location of work. I also have clients who have moved provinces. And so when you have a permit, like, if you have an open work permit, even if you don't, and you're exploring different opportunities and the possibility to get support to get a work permit from a new employer, I would be very deliberate and strategic in the types of job opportunities I'm looking for. And you know, it's not lost on me that it is a tough job market. And so obviously, you know, taking work that you can get is important, and to the extent that it's possible, looking for employment opportunities in occupations you qualify for that are being targeted by draws, or if there's a specific provincial stream, and in a location where draws are being held. I'm sure everyone's heard the TR to PR program, not program, is targeting people who have work experience in rural locations. And what the government, just in case you hadn't heard the update, what the government has done is they are fast tracking the processing of people who already applied for PR who have work experience in rural regions. So I would look at those factors if I had an open work permit, or if you have like time left on your work permit. And that's how I would plan for PR. And then the last part of that question is it realistic to focus on learning French? So I did a scenario where I calculated all different combinations of CRS points, and no matter which way I sliced it, having French language skills at CLB 7 or higher always won. So if you are somebody who either has some French language skills, and it would be like, you know, brushing up on them, or if you want to learn or are able, you're someone that like picks up language, then it's an investment that's unlikely to fail you. So it's not a guarantee, but I would say if you're considering it and it's something that you feel is feasible for yourself, because obviously that's very personal, then I don't see very many scenarios where that wouldn't be a worthwhile use of your time. I also realize that it might seem a bit, you know, far-fetched to suggest learning a new language. So again, that's where it comes down to it being very personal for your situation. Okay. See questions. I'm just scanning to see if there was anyone else that had submitted in advance, and I see a couple hands up. If you can, please pop your questions into the chats. The way that we do it, just in case you weren't here at the beginning, is we answer the questions by from people that submitted them when they registered, and who are here live in the session, and then we'll open up to people that didn't submit in advance but who are here live. Okay, I see someone else here. One second, who submitted in advance. Let me just pull up your question. Okay, so this question is, I'm currently on a 1-year postgrad work permit, valid to November 2026. I work as a support worker, which is NOC 44101, and have an active Manitoba for Provincial Nominee Program expression of interest profile since January of this year. What other options can I explore for PR as plan B, because I'm not eligible for federal express entry? So this question brings up a number of really good points. The first being that there is not a federal immigration program, aside for potentially like the rural immigration pilot or the Atlantic immigration program. There are no federal programs that knock 4 and 5 occupations would qualify under. So in this case, you can always tell what the skill level or tier level is because it's the second digit in the NOC code. So in this case, the NOC code is 44101. So the tier level is 4, the skill level is 4. And so in tier 4 and 5 occupations, unless it's one of those pilots or the Atlantic Immigration Program, the option is to look at provincial nominee programs because those are the programs that often have specific streams for certain tier 4 and 5 occupations. And so obviously you're already aware that Manitoba does because you have an expression of interest. Now, my understanding from the question is that you have the expression of interest, but you haven't been invited to apply yet. And so just to get straight to the point of your question, is there a plan B? Yes, the plan B would to look at other provinces. And Caitlin, correct me, I know I'm getting the name of the pilot wrong because it's changed names. But the rural and francophone community pilots, right?
The rural and northern immigration pilot, and then I can't the francophone. I don't
And
know
then it's the francophone community pilot. Okay, yeah. So I would look at those and see, like, do you qualify under one of those? And you have to be living in a participating community for those ones. And then otherwise look at other provinces and if you would qualify, perhaps if you secured a job offer in another province. Support worker was part of the home support worker pilot, but that pilot has closed and there's no real indication of when it will open again, or if it will. There might be new pilots. So that would be my recommendation, would be to look at those alternate programs and then potentially even be looking at, seeking out job opportunities in other provinces where you've identified that there's a path that could work for you. You've indicated that you obviously studied in Canada because you have a PGWP. So sometimes the provinces have streams for international graduates, but some of the provinces are only applicable like if you actually studied in that province, whereas other provinces will allow you to apply if you graduated from an out-of-province school. So you have to really dig into the criteria of each of the provincial programs. And then, as I mentioned before, not only do you have to determine, like, can you meet the eligibility criteria, but are you likely to get an invitation to apply if there's an expression of interest system in place? And I did do a quick scan of other provinces, I think. Hold on, let me see. Just to give you, yeah, I did. So you have to double check this and like verify against the facts of your situation. But Ontario employer job offer includes your NOC. Looks like the Saskatchewan program health talent pathway might include that NOC. New Brunswick priority occupations, and then Manitoba, which is where you currently are. So the reason I say like double check is I didn't dive into each and every one of those streams. Like there are over 120 different pathways to PR when you like slice it all up by each province and territory, and then the different streams within each province and territory. But just knowing kind of they all sort of more or less function the same way. And so that's why like I would focus on those ones because that's what my quick search brought up, and then go systematically province by province, determine if you're able to meet the eligibility. And then if that's a yes, then review how invitations get issued or like what the application process is like. If you do need an invitation to apply, figure out how points are awarded and how your profile would be ranked. do a calculation, figure out how, like, what the invitations have been, because sometimes there are even programs or streams within a provincial nominee program that exist, they're open. But when you actually look at the past rounds of invitation, they might not have done a round of invitation in over a year. So that's what it's a multi-step, like, evaluation of, is this a good opportunity or not? Okay. Okay, so we answered. Oh, someone else has a question about LMIA too. Let's see. So the LMIA was rejected. They requested reconsideration. They haven't received a response regarding the case. Do you know how long the process takes? Okay, so on that note, typically requests for reconsideration are, what's the word I'm looking for? Discretionary. Like, it's an informal request, unless you pursue leave for judicial review, meaning like you're disputing the decision at federal court. Then any request for reconsideration it's informal, and the government doesn't have an obligation to reply. So I would say if that request was submitted, so the question says that well, it actually says last November the employer applied and it was rejected. So depending on when it was rejected and when you submitted the request for reconsideration, if it's been several weeks or a month, I would say it's unlikely that the government's going to engage with that request. Your employer could go to their member of parliament and seek support, because members of parliament, they serve their constituents, and your employer would be a constituent. And they often have a dedicated staff member that is like a caseworker, and that's a person that can liaise with IRCC. So your employer could reach out to their MP and see if there's any support they can get there. Like, the MP can't overturn the decision or anything like that, but they could potentially just follow up on the request for reconsideration and see, like, if any action had been taken, just so you get some more visibility into, like, what's going on. So there's that. And then alternatively, depending on the reasons for refusal, they could reapply. Like, if it was maybe the advertising didn't meet the strict requirements, or I don't, there's so many reasons actually that it could be refused. But if it's something that could be overcome by, like, re-advertising or submitting additional supporting documents, your employer might consider just reapplying. So that's another option. And then the second part of the question is, I don't have a work permit. Should I wait for this or keep looking for a job that will allow me to stay? I would say, it's expensive to live in Canada without employment. I mean, I can't speak to your particular financial position, but like, it's not, cost of living isn't cheap in Canada. And for that reason, I would suggest that you keep all your options open. So look for other opportunities, consider other types of LMIAs depending on what type of job offer or the type of occupation that you qualify for. There's lots of LMIA exempt work permits. I actually have I'm going to be posting it on YouTube shortly. It was a webinar I did with another group, and we talked a lot about the different types of work permits and when they might apply and just, like, scenarios. I also have if you haven't seen it yet, on our YouTube, there's a whole episode on the different types of LMIA exempt work permits, and I deep dive into some of them specifically. So I would explore different job opportunities, or explore different types of work permits. In this climate, I would keep all my options open. And just a reminder, I see some hands up. Please, if you can pop your questions in the chat. That's how we're going to do it systematically here. And don't pop it in the chat if you're driving. I see someone's in a car. If you're a passenger, put it in the chat. If not, please focus on driving. Okay. Just checking if there was anyone else that submitted a question in advance. I don't see. Any of you folks that have your hands up, if you submitted a question when you registered, please jump off mute.
Yes, I submitted one question.
Okay, fantastic.
𝐈𝐦𝐬𝐧.
All right. Don't see your question here. Do you want to just share sorry, wow.
Yeah.
Stumbling
Yeah.
over words. Share your question out loud, please.
Hello, nice to meet you. This is the first time for me, and
Amazing,
appreciate
welcome.
your time. So I have my work permit. I will finish, will end this in July 3rd, next July. And in other side, I already applied for PR, BNB, Professional Nominee Program in Ontario.
Okay.
By the way, I work as a chef in the hotel, and I discussed with them to apply for new work permit, but the minimum wage is too high, it's like 36 dollar an
Oh, to
hour.
do an LMIA. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Do you have a provincial nomination? You already were approved by the province.
I already applied for professional nominee program.
Okay, so you've applied to the province, and is that application pending?
Yeah, I already applied in July and 1st of January.
Okay.
Okay, but I waited for invitation, but I didn't get my invitation yet.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there for a second. Just to clarify, because this is a really, really common misconception, or maybe not even misconception, but just because of the nature of the work that we do, my attention to detail is like annoying. So, and you haven't applied because what you've done is you've submitted your expression of interest, which is not an application. And the distinction is important because if you've applied, then there are work permit options, especially like once you get nominated. But if you are waiting in the pool and you have an expression of interest, but not an invitation to apply, it changes our approach. So, where do you work? Let me clarify that. Like, what city?
City Guelph in Ontario.
In Guelph. Okay. Caitlin, is Guelph in one of the
No, I
CMAs?
live in Guelph. My work is Elora. Elora.
Elora. Okay.
Elora.
I grew up in Ontario and I don't know where Elora is. Is it near
We have a-
Guelph?
If we have a postcode, I can tell you if the refusal to process applies.
Like this, I submit
Yeah.
the
Elora. Okay. What's the postal code of the place of work? Can you pop that in?
place of work. 1 second.
But it
Because-
actually, Caitlin, it doesn't really matter, right? Because of the employer.
Yeah, okay, I can give you the name of the hotel.
No, that's okay. No, that's okay.
Okay. Postal code.
We're just trying to brainstorm here. Like if your employer can't do an LMIA.
Yeah.
No, actually, no. Can you put the postal
Postal
code?
code, it's N0B 1S0.
Because
Sorry,
if
can you say that again?
yeah, sorry.
Can you just put it in the chat?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
1 second.
Because if it's outside of a CMA, which is a census metropolitan area, then your employer doesn't have to offer you over the median, the provincial median. They can do NOB 1SO. They could do a low wage LMIA if it's not in a CMA.
Actually, to be honest, I was with other immigration consultant today, He's applied for professional nominee program, and he's give me a link. He says minimum wage you can apply, but I can't talk with my employer and force him to apply for something he didn't say yet.
Oh,
So
exactly. Yeah. No, what we're checking is like, because you mentioned that your employer said the wage was too high. So we're checking.
no, like 6 months ago or 7 months, the minimum wage it was so high.
Yeah.
But I waiting for answer from them. But my question with you right now, what's the other option? What's the other option to stay in Canada
Mhm.
without
Yeah.
problem? Yeah,
So the way that I will always look at work permits is like to determine what options exist is I always go to LMIA exempt work permits first. And then I have a method of looking at the ones that have that are the easiest, right? Relatively speaking, like International Experience Canada or postgraduate work permit or Francophone mobility. And then I go into things like free trade agreement, depending on your country of nationality. And I look at those options. I look at, for example, in a hotel, what we've seen is depending on the hotel. I don't want you to share the name just because we,
yeah,
want to, we don't want to, identify
yeah,
employers or people in the call. But some employers, sorry, particularly hotels, if they're large hotels, they have properties around the world. If they have an internal global mobility strategy and plan that would allow a Canadian citizen or permanent resident to go and work abroad at one of their other properties, they may be able to support your work permit through an LMIA exempt category if they can demonstrate reciprocal employment. So opportunities. So that's something that you might consider that I've seen come up before with hotels, particularly large hotel chains. So what I would do, Caitlin, could you pop into the chat the link to all of the LMIA work permit exemption codes? I would just go through every single one and see if there's an option there that would fit your circumstances and the facts in your case. We also, in Navio HQ, which I think all of you are now part of, because I think you would have signed up possibly in order to get the link to this session. But we have a work permit selection quiz in there. And what that quiz does is it walks you through the same logic and reviews the different types of work permits in the same approach that I do. So the same like logic that I use when I'm reviewing options. And it's just a process of elimination. I start with the easiest, fastest, types of work permits that have the highest chance of success. And then I just systematically work my way through the rest of the types of work permit options. Okay, so we are at the end of today's session. That went super fast.
I have just one question.
Yeah, we'll do one more follow-up and then we'll cut.
Yeah.
We'll have to wrap up this session.
Yeah.
But just before you get into that, I will say we have all the questions and a couple of ways that if we didn't get to your question today, a couple of ways that we can support you. By all means, come to the next session. Also follow us on socials because I take the questions that you guys put to us. And if I don't get to it live in the session, I'm making content about it. So I will answer those questions and it will come up in time on our socials. So follow us on YouTube. It's our main channel. And then also on Facebook and Instagram. And then if it's something that's urgent and you want to have addressed, in a more timely manner, because we run these sessions every 2 weeks, then you can always book a session with one of us. They are paid. but you'll get one-on-one personalized a consultation with Caitlin or I. And, you know, we have as short of a time as 15 minutes. So we created that because we had so many requests for, hey, I just have a quick question. So we wanted to be able to provide something accessible for that. And you can book those sessions directly through our website if you want to get that personalized support sooner than later. Otherwise, like I said, follow us on social or join another session. So one follow-up question, and then we will wrap up for today.
Okay.
Yeah, I just also wrote my question, but I haven't heard my name. I tried to raise the hand, but
No, so
yeah,
we're
that's
taking questions from the ones that were submitted in advance, and it actually took us the whole time today. Caitlin, can you put the website into our website into the chat,
I
please?
can say my question.
But yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So Ian, so what you can do is you can come to our other session, like I said, book a consult with us.
Okay.
Or if
Okay.
you put your question in the chat, then I keep record of them, and I'll do my best to address it as soon as possible on our social media channels.
Okay. I just I want you let me know yes or not. That's
Yes,
it.
go ahead, Ella.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, please.
I look into study or
Yeah.
I make visitor visa. That's the best fast way to stay legal in Canada. Are you
Okay.
agree or not?
Oh, you have to, you have to do something to maintain your status. Absolutely. If you genuinely want to pursue study and you've been accepted to a study program, then you can apply for the study permit. Keep in mind, IRCC, they will evaluate genuineness. So if you're switching from work to study or any other like switch, then they're going to be looking at like, is this genuine or is this person just trying to like stay in Canada? And so make sure if you're applying for a study permit that you have a really clear study plan that shows a clear progression from past study that you have, the past work experience that you have, and that clearly ties into what your future career plans are. So make sure that that's outlined really clearly and compellingly in your study plan. Otherwise, you can submit an application to stay as a visitor. In that case, the really key components of that application will be proving that you have the financial means to support yourself for your stay, that you have a well and clearly thought out plan for how long are you staying, why are you staying, what are you doing when you're here, and that you're going to respect the conditions of your stay, because as soon as your work permit expires, you are no longer authorized to work. You still have status if you've applied for this stay as a visitor, but you can no longer work. And IRCC has to be convinced that you will not work with authorization. And so part of that is proving that you have the financial means to support yourself. But again, also like, what is your plan? Why are you making this request? Prove that you have an intent and ability to leave Canada at the end of your authorized stay, and then you're not going to work while you're here if you apply to stay as visitor. Okay, so we're going to wrap up. I know there were a ton of questions that we didn't get to today, but like I said, we have all the ones that were submitted in advance. I have the chat for those of you who put your questions in the chat, and I will do my best to get to all of them and get them up on our social media channels as soon as possible. Otherwise, like I said, come to a future session, or if you have something more urgent, you can book a consultation. Again, they are paid, but we have consultations ranging from 15 minutes all the way up to a 60-minute full strategic plan. So lots of options available if you have something more urgent, especially if it's something where you want to seek personalized advice, because again, I will reiterate that all of the information today is general. It's just suggestions. We are not giving personalized legal advice, and none of the information that we shared constitutes personal legal advice unless we are under an engagement with you directly to do so. So those are the options. Also, you can continue exploring on our YouTube in Navio HQ, and lots of free resources there as well. And make sure you grab the links from the chat, because there's some links that Caitlin shared there. So thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate you spending the time with us this evening, and hope to see you again at the next session. Have a good evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. And thanks again for coming.